Hey guys, tonight we walk beneath the deepening sky, where the last glow of sunlight filters through a cathedral of ancient pine. The forest around you feels impossibly still until it doesn't. One footstep, then another, your boots press softly into damp moss, the kind that seems to drink sound. And you get that odd tickle between your shoulder blades, the one that says, "You're not alone." You glance behind you. Nothing. Only the long spines of tree shadows sliding across the ground like old fingers. Welcome to the place where trees don't just creak, they whisper. This is the part where I remind you, you probably won't survive this, at least, not in the same emotional state. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Also, post your location and local time in the comments. I want to see where our sleepy little community is tuning in from tonight. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You trudge forward, ducking under a branch that seems to lower itself just as you approach. How polite, you thank it, half joking, half wondering if it heard. The path ahead is soft with loam and scattered pine cones, arranged almost too neatly. The air smells like cedar, whetstone, and something older. Maybe the ghost of a campfire from 100 years ago. The only sound is the faint snap of a twig far behind you. Still nothing when you look back. Most forests sleep at night, but not this one. Here, trees lean just slightly closer than gravity would explain. Their bark is etched not only by beetles, but by time itself. Long claw-like cracks, spiral grooves, and sometimes shapes that look suspiciously like symbols. Some of these trees are over 500 years old, older than the invention of the telescope, older than your great-great-grandpa's worst fashion choices. Mainstream forestry tells us trees communicate chemically and electrically through their root systems, a fascinating bit of science, popularized by researchers like Suzanne Simard. These underground exchanges help trees warn one another of droughts, pests, or even a too chatty neighbor. In one case, dying trees in Germany were caught sending their remaining nutrients to saplings they weren't even related to, like woodland grandmas packing snacks for the next generation. But you're not under the ground. You're here, in the hush of twilight, and you haven't touched a root, but still, you feel watched. Not threatened, just observed. You pause beside a particularly wide tree, its trunk mottled with moss. You swear you see a face in the bark, but the more you look, the more it slips away like a half-formed dream. You reach out and brush your fingers against it. The bark is warm. Okay, that's not creepy at all. Historians still argue whether ancient cultures believed trees housed spirits, or if they were spirits themselves. The Celts considered groves sacred. The Norse believed in Yggdrasil, the world tree connecting all realms. Even the Japanese kami live in trees with shimenawa ropes tied around their trunks. In every case, the forest wasn't just scenery, it was consciousness. Watching, listening, waiting. You take another step, then another. A small wind drifts through, and you hear it. Not wind in the usual way, not rustling. It's more like breath, a hush too coordinated, too curved around your presence, to be random. It doesn't rise or fall with the breeze. It responds just ahead. Something glints, maybe dew, maybe a spider web. But when you angle your head, you realize it's a tiny feather wedged into the bark of a tree. A black feather, almost woven into a knothole. Strange. You start to wonder if someone or something curated this entire experience, like you're being gently herded. A memory surfaces. You once read that trees respond differently to different people touching them. Not just weight or pressure, but actual chemical shifts. The theories fringe. Of course, no one wants to fund a project proving that oaks prefer jazz enthusiasts over accountants. Still, You can't shake the feeling that your presence here is being assessed. The trees whisper again, soft and drawn out, like someone trying to tell you a secret across a great distance. You tilt your ear slightly. There it is. Not words, not really, but meaning, fuzzy, almost like listening underwater, but definitely aimed at you. You stand still. The forest, too, holds its breath. You crouch slightly, fingers brushing the spongy earth, and glance around like someone trying not to look lost in a bookstore with no signs. The trees here are impossibly tall, some nearly 200 feet. You can't see the tops anymore, just branches crossing overhead like a vaulted ceiling in a cathedral made of chlorophyll. As you move, your boots press into the soil with a softness that feels unnatural. It's not just earth. There's something beneath it. You pause, placing your palm flat on the forest floor. The ground hums. At first, you think it's just your own heartbeat pulsing in your hand. But then the vibration shifts, fainter, subtler, like distant radio static from a channel you weren't meant to find. You lie down fully now, cheek pressed to the moss, and that's when you feel it. Not one hum, but a network of pulses stretching out like veins, like roads, a map written in vibration. Modern science calls this the Wood Wide Web. Not kidding. Coined in the 1990s, the term refers to mycorrhizal networks, microscopic fungal threads that link trees underground. Through these connections, trees share resources, send warnings, and even engage in low-level sabotage, kind of like a slow-motion reality show with fir trees and more ethical boundaries. Researchers discovered that a mother tree could identify and prioritize her own offspring when distributing nutrients. The forest has a memory, and that memory runs on a silent, invisible internet made of roots and fungus. The kicker: it predates human agriculture by millions of years. But this isn't just about the science. You swear the ground beneath you is whispering, like old dial-up trying to connect. Only gentler as you close your eyes. In the darkness, you imagine the network reaching outward, across centuries, through fallen logs and living roots, passing secrets from tree to tree. You stand, brushing soil off your clothes, and look around. Nothing has changed, and yet everything has. You're aware now, the same way you feel when someone's reading over your shoulder, even if they're behind a door. Historians still argue whether prehistoric humans understood this connectivity. Some anthropologists suggest early forest-dwelling societies performed rituals over fallen trees, not to mourn death, but to acknowledge a voice no longer in the network. Tree burial. They called it. No tombstones, just saplings planted near the deceased, as if memory could root itself. You move forward, and the trail forks without warning. Left dips toward a darker ravine. Right climbs gently, flanked by smaller trees, bent like they're whispering to one another. You choose right, because let's face it, no good bedtime story starts with, "So you jumped into the darkest pit available." Up ahead, a clearing opens, oddly circular, like the forest decided it needed some breathing room. At the center stands a stump, massive, easily 10 feet wide. Whatever tree once stood here was older than any cathedral, possibly older than the concept of cathedral. The wood of the stump has fossilized in parts, veins of amber threaded through its rings like old gold fillings. You crouch beside it. A single mushroom grows along the edge, pale blue, not a color you normally associate with fungus. It glows faintly, even in the fading light. You don't touch it. Some things aren't meant to be collected. Suddenly, you hear the faintest rustle, not behind you this time, but beneath. You place your ear against the stump, and for a brief moment, you hear something impossible, the soft clicking of roots shifting far below, like branches brushing stone. They aren't dead. This stump is still connected. You back away slowly, careful not to disturb the mushroom, and the whispering starts again, this time layered, as if voices are overlapping. trying to agree on how to speak to you. The sound doesn't come from one direction. It's everywhere. You remember that this part of the forest is known locally as the listening bowl. Hikers say your voice echoes differently here. Even when you whisper, some claim the echoes repeat things you didn't say. Folklore. Sure, but weirdly consistent folklore. You test it. You whisper your name. The trees don't echo it. But something small, a shift in pressure, a chill on your arm acknowledges it. Not like an echo, but like someone nodding. That's fine. That's totally fine. You're not alarmed. You're awake. As you step away, you realize something. Your movements have rhythm now, as if the ground itself is setting the tempo. The forest isn't resisting your presence. It's pacing you, matching you, learning your stride. There's that whisper again, closer, clearer, deliberate. The whisper begins at dusk, soft, smooth, like a silk ribbon brushing against your ear from a direction you can't quite place. You pause under the long arms of a cedar, your breath fogging faintly in the cooling air. There's no wind, not even a hint. The branches hang perfectly still above, motionless, like they've forgotten they can move. And yet, you hear it again. That hush, it's not a word, not exactly. More like a suggestion, a feeling in sound form. If silence had a voice, this would be it. You turn slowly, trying not to break whatever spell you've stumbled into. The whisper fades. And then, as you take a step, it returns trailing behind your footfalls, like it's choosing to follow you. You squint up at the treetops, half expecting to catch someone perched up there with a very elaborate prank setup. But no, just pine needles and shadows. The ancients believed that forests were portals, thresholds between worlds. Celtic druids taught that trees could communicate not only with each other, but with the stars. Yes, stars. They believed starlight was absorbed into bark and translated into guidance. Not exactly something you can put in a lab report, but imagine the forest as a cosmic switchboard, quietly decoding the night sky. It makes your smartwatch feel embarrassingly insecure. The whisper drifts again, and this time it's joined by another, fainter, more tentative. You freeze, ears straining like you're listening for a friend's voice in a crowded airport. Still not words, not language in the normal sense, but something is reaching out, testing you. You crouch beside a patch of ferns, brushing them aside. Beneath the leaves, the soil is dry, not dusty, but dry in a way that feels curated, as if someone or something vacuumed away the moisture just in this one patch. You place your hand on the dirt. Nothing. Then suddenly shiver. Your fingers tingle, not cold, but a soft, electric buzzing, like the static charge before a lightning strike. You yank your hand back on instinct, then feel a little silly. This is fine. This is all totally normal behavior for a supposedly inanimate ecosystem. Historians still argue whether early forest settlers actually heard these whispers or simply believed they did. One camp insists the whispers were metaphors for intuition or conscience. The other camp points to eerily similar oral histories from Japan, South America, and Scandinavia, all describing trees that spoke only after dark. You know, the kind of scholarly debate where both sides wear tweed, but only one side sleeps with the lights on. You continue down the trail, feet barely making sound now, and the forest rewards your quiet. The whispers become more rhythmic, still not speech, but definitely intentional, like the sound is folding around you, shaping itself to match your thoughts. Then it hits you. It doesn't feel like the forest is talking. It feels like it's listening. You test this. You think of a memory, nothing dramatic, just the time you got lost in the supermarket at age 6 and ended up making friends with the bakery guy. You don't say it out loud, just remember it. The whisper swells. You stop. Okay, now that's weird. The moment passes, and the forest quiets again. You glance down and realize the path ahead is no longer dirt, but soft needles, not laid flat woven. Like a mat, no tire tracks, no boot prints, just this narrow corridor of padded silence leading into deeper dark. Above you, the branches begin to stir. No breeze. They just move together, slowly, in a pattern. Like a conductor raised a baton somewhere and gave the cue. You walk slowly now, respectfully. Even your thoughts feel quieter. You reach a bend in the trail, and suddenly, the trees open up. Not fully a partial glade, shaped almost like an ear. The sound here changes. It sharpens. You realize something. The whispers aren't coming from behind you or beside you. They're forming ahead, always just a few steps in front, like breadcrumbs made of sound. You follow, and as you do, you swear you can hear laughter. Not loud or mocking, more like children laughing under their breath, the kind of laughter that makes you wonder if they're laughing with you or at you. Either way, it's oddly reassuring. The trail dips just enough to make your knees whisper complaints of their own. You steady yourself on a birch trunk, its papery bark flaking under your palm like ancient scrolls. A few steps more, and you find it, a fallen tree, cleaved clean by time, or lightning, hard to tell. What's left is a cross-section wider than your arm span, its rings exposed like the forest's own fingerprint. You crouch and count the growth rings, not aloud. You're not about to start monologuing to timber like a Shakespearean lumberjack, but mentally, 1, 2, 3. Then you give up around 30 because the pattern stops behaving. Some rings are tightly packed, others absurdly wide, and in one place, the rings spiral off course entirely, as if the tree was startled mid-century and just pivoted. You squint. There's a dark scorch mark slicing through part of the ring's narrow. Precise. Unnatural. Like someone took a branding iron to time. You touch the blackened groove. It's smooth. Still warm. Wait. Warm. You pull your hand back and check the sky. No sun. No heat. Okay. Let's not overreact. Maybe residual temperature. Or your imagination. Probably both. But this tree feels alive. Not in a roots still working kind of way. Alive in a conscious artifact sort of way. Like the stump has opinions. Here's the thing. Tree rings don't just tell age. They tell history. Droughts. Floods. Volcanic ash. Nuclear testing. All those events leave marks. The discipline's called dendrochronology. Say it 10 times fast. Or just once while trying to impress someone at a nature museum. Some rings align across forests miles apart, suggesting not only climate patterns, but shared trauma. Trees, it seems, remember in circles. One odd fringe theory, okay? More like folklore with a PhD claims. Certain trees, just a few rare ones, can remember specific events. Not just seasons or storms, but moments, deaths, secrets, the sharp pitch of a scream. These events supposedly twist the growth pattern permanently, as if the tree flinched when it happened. Historians still argue whether these anomalies are natural or myth layered over biology. Some say the legends of haunted forests started when someone noticed a tree growing sideways after a mysterious disappearance. You lean closer to the spiral, just beyond the burn mark. The rings blur, not literally, but your eyes refuse to focus. A trick of light. Maybe, or maybe something deeper, doesn't want to be looked at too long. You blink. The blur's gone. That's when you notice the bark along the backside of the stump, where sunlight hasn't touched in years, has patterns, not insect trails, not moss, something closer to script. It doesn't look like any language you know, but the flow is unmistakable. Curved lines, intersecting dashes, almost musical. You get the feeling that if you had the right instrument, something carved from antler or bone, you could play this tree like a phonograph. You back away slowly. Up above, the forest rustles again. Not random. It rises and falls in waves. A forest-wide sigh. Time to your retreat. The sound doesn't come from birds or beasts. It comes from the trees themselves. The branches don't just sway. They respond. You pass another stump, smaller, and this one is absolutely full of holes. Not rot, perfectly round holes, like something once bored into it with a deliberate rhythm. Morse code, beetle rave. You're not sure which explanation feels more likely at this point. You laugh quiet, short. The sound feels oddly loud here, not just volume-wise. Emotionally loud. The trees quiet as if listening, judging, or maybe just waiting for the punchline. You sigh, the kind of sigh that releases tension from your collarbone down to your shoes, and somewhere, in response, a low creak echoes, deep, not wood-on-wood creaking, more like acknowledgement. You turn and glance back at the burned spiral on the old tree stump. The marks shimmer faintly now in the fading light, almost pulsing. You decide to keep moving before it gets darker. Too dark. But just before you leave the glade, a breeze lifts your first actual wind all evening, and it carries a smell. Smoke, but not the dangerous kind. More like incense, resin and sap, and something sweet. You look around. No fire, no people, but the scent lingers, and with it, the whispering returns. You follow the scent, deeper into the woods, guided more by instinct than path. At some point, the trail disappeared. Or maybe it never really existed at all, but your feet seem to know where to go. You're not sure if that's comforting or concerning. Probably both. The trees crowd in now, not aggressively, just intimately, like they're leaning in to hear a secret. Their trunks vary wildly, some wide and gnarled, others thin and straight like sentinels. But what draws your eye is the moss. It's everywhere, draped over roots, blanketing rocks, climbing halfway up trunks like it's trying to become tree. Thick, emerald green, and so lush, you're half tempted to lie down and take a nap right there. You resist, barely. Something about the way it looks too even, too intentional makes you wonder if it's sleeping on something or guarding something. You pause by a boulder, half swallowed by the moss. You reach out, lightly brushing the surface. It's soft, damp, but then it vibrates. You freeze. It happens again, a brief pulse, like a breath through velvet. You pull your hand back. Okay, so the rock is breathing now. That's fine. Totally within normal expectations of a casual night stroll through a whispering forest. You press your ear gently to the moss, and there it is. A sound. Not words, not wind, more like fragments of speech, caught in a blender, then dipped in fog, phrases half-formed, but loaded with emotion, regret, joy, warning. The moss is echoing something. But what? Turns out, mosses are ancient, like older than dinosaurs ancient. They've survived 5 mass extinctions and still cover more of the earth than all the forests combined. Some species don't even need soil, just moisture and a surface. Kind of like green existentialists, quietly clinging to life in the margins. Fringe botanists, yes, that's a thing. Believe moss might retain traces of energy from voices spoken near it. Not as audio, but as vibrations, chemically etched into the plant's structure. A kind of memory without memory. Think of it like emotional film negatives stored in chlorophyll. Historians still argue whether the ancient Greeks knew about moss's properties, or just really liked how soft it was to nap on during philosophical epiphanies. You tilt your head, the sound changes. It seems to mimic the cadence of your breath. You inhale slowly, the vibration rises. You exhale and it softens. You try again. Inhale, louder. Exhale, quieter. Okay, so the moss is having a conversation with your lungs now. That's new. You laugh under your breath and instantly, a different patch of moss, several feet away, flickers in the corner of your eye. Not visibly, just the awareness of movement. You walk to it, brush your hand across. This one's different, less soft, more brittle. When you press your fingers down, it feels like teeth, Nope. You retract your hand like you touched a stove. You step back and look around. More moss, now illuminated by patches of moonlight breaking through the trees. Each patch feels like it's waiting, like it knows. The whispering returns. It's faint, filtered through the moss, more distorted than before, but you swear it says something close to your name. Not exactly, just enough to make your spine curl. You scan the ground and notice something else. The moss avoids certain spots. Perfect circles of exposed soil scattered here and there. Clean, dry, and oddly warm. You step into one. Instant silence. The forest pauses. Like someone hit mute. You step back out. The whisper resumes. It's as if these bare circles are pressure valves, places where the forest can't listen, or maybe chooses not to. Sanctuaries, or blind spots, depending on how optimistic you're feeling tonight. A breeze moves through, and for the first time in hours, the leaves rustle overhead, not randomly rhythmically. They seem to echo the same cadence you felt in the moss. Breath. Inhale, exhale, a forest-sized inhale, slow and deliberate. You follow the breeze until it stops near an unusually large tree. Its base is hollowed, and inside, you see a small object just barely wedged deep in the shadows. You crouch, lean closer. It's a bone, smooth, clean, with moss growing up one side like a sleeve. Okay, you decide to walk away. Quickly, quietly. As you move, the moss seems to part ahead of you, opening like a curtain. The whispering fades now, not gone, just retreating, as if it's watching you leave, or letting you. The deeper you go, the quieter it becomes, until quiet itself feels like a sound, the kind that presses against your eardrums with a strange pressure, like you're underwater or inside a cathedral that hasn't heard a human voice in centuries. You step over a gnarled root, duck beneath a bent maple, and almost miss it. A cluster of trees, weeping amber, not sap, not the usual sticky amber that hardens slowly over weeks. This stuff glows, only slightly, just enough to catch your eye in the dim light, like candlelight seen through fog. It drips in slow motion, tracing long golden trails down the bark like liquid glass. The glow pulses gently, in time with something. You hold your breath. It pulses again. You reach out, hovering your fingers just above it. The warmth radiates, even before you touch it, like sunlit honey on a winter's day. One drop clings to the tip of your index finger. It's not sticky, not cold. It feels aware. The ancient Egyptians believed amber held the soul of the sun. They called it tears of the gods, not metaphorically, literally. As in, the gods cried light, and it hardened into golden resin. They wore it in amulets, ground it into powder for rituals, and even burned it as incense to recall the dead politely. Historians still argue whether this glow-in-the-dark resin was ever real, or if it was simply poetic license layered over ancient tree wounds. But this, what you're seeing now, this glows without heat, without fire. You're not burning incense, you're being watched by it. The whispering starts again, louder now, no longer just a hush in the background, but right here, beside you, inside your thoughts. You step back from the tree, and the glow fades slightly, not like dimming lights, more like disappointment. You swallow, because that's not weird at all. Then you notice the pattern. Each glowing tree faces inward, forming a circle, 9 of them total, encircling a soft patch of moss-covered ground. At the center of this natural formation, there's a dip, shallow but distinct, like the land remembers something once lay here. You step into the center, the sound stops entirely. The amber drips slow and then whisper, but it's different now. Not just sound, shape. The air around you seems to bend subtly. You reach out, feeling resistance like thick fog, though your eyes still see nothing. You stand perfectly still. Then a breeze passes not through you, but around you, like the wind changed its course not to touch you. like you've stepped into a space the forest doesn't want disturbed. You breathe slowly, and the trees breathe with you. You close your eyes and listen. That's when the stories begin, not from your own memory, not dreams, but foreign memories. Places you've never been, images you could never have seen, a firelit cave, echoing with chants in a language older than any you've heard, a storm blowing across an empty plain, with nothing but charred stumps for miles, a child leaving a flower on the stump of a fallen tree and whispering an apology. You open your eyes. The glowing amber is now brighter, and you swear it pulses in sync with your heart. You step back, out of the ring. The sensations retreat. The whispering softens, but doesn't leave. It follows now, like it's chosen you. You glance up. The stars have begun to pierce the forest canopy. A thin sliver of moonlight finds its way through the branches, landing squarely on your shoulder like a spotlight. You feel exposed and oddly honored. Then you hear it again, the whisper, right in your ear this time. One word, a name. It's not your name, but somehow it knows you know it. You whisper it back. The amber flares, and in the distance, something answers. The answer doesn't come as a sound. It arrives as a change in the air, a pressure shift, like when a thunderstorm is just moments away. But the clouds haven't realized it yet. You freeze, every nerve on high alert, but not from fear, from expectation. Because somewhere ahead, a tree just woke up. You follow the subtle pull, your footsteps silent now without trying. The forest opens slightly, just enough for moonlight to sketch the outline of a truly massive tree, far larger than any you've seen so far. It doesn't glow. It doesn't hum. It waits. Its bark is deep gray, almost silver in places, and thick with scars. Some are natural lightning strikes, falling limbs. Others aren't. You approach, eyes adjusting to the grooves carved deep into its surface. Letters, symbols, scratches you first mistake for random damage but slowly realize form lines. Repeating shapes, not decoration language. You run your fingertips along the ridges, feeling the uneven depth like braille. Some are fresh, others are so old. They've smoothed into the bark like wrinkles on a wise old face. You step back and realize the entire trunk is a ledger, a record, etched with 1,000 hands over 1,000 years. Somewhere in the markings, you spot what looks like tally marks, long sets of vertical lines intersected by diagonal slashes. They stretch up to your head height, then fade into older layers. You count 47, 52. Then the rest blur into age. You get the sense that someone's came here to speak, and the tree, it listened, maybe still does. Here's a fun fact. Researchers discovered that trees actually hear vibrations, not like ears, but through their roots and wood fibers. They respond to the sound of running water, for example, by growing roots toward it. It's called mechanosensing. Trees can literally feel sound, which means if enough people whispered their grief, their joy, their names into this tree across centuries, maybe it didn't just absorb their stories, maybe it kept them. Historians still argue whether ancient tribes carved stories into trees out of tradition or because they believed trees remembered. The concept of a witness tree appears across cultures, from war markers in North America to peace offerings in Europe. These trees weren't sacred because of their species. They were sacred because of what they knew. You lean in closer to one particularly dark scar. It's shaped like a flame, not just an outline, but detailed like it was burned in, not carved. When you touch it, the bark feels smooth, too smooth, like it healed around the mark but didn't forget. Suddenly, the air tightens again. Not a sound, a presence. You glance up and catch it, just for a second. A figure, not behind the tree. In the tree, you blink. Gone. You laugh nervously, say something out loud. Anything. Nice bark. Classic. Smooth. The tree doesn't respond, but the scar flares briefly. Not with light, with warmth. You swear it understood. You circle the tree slowly on the far side. The carvings are more chaotic, scratched in different directions, overlapping. But at the base, where roots flare out like claws, you find something new, a small object, half buried in the soil. You kneel, brush dirt away. It's a pendant, wooden, shaped like a spiral, strung on a rotted cord. Someone left it here long ago, or maybe the tree gave it back. You pick it up, and that's when the whispering returns, stronger than ever, not just in your ears, in your chest, in your bones. And this time, you understand, not the words. The meaning, welcome back. You freeze, back. You tuck the pendant gently into your pocket and stand. The tree remains still, silent, but you feel its awareness, not judging. Just there. You step away slowly, heart still thudding with adrenaline and awe. As you walk back toward the path, the wind picks up just for a second, and the whisper fades again. But the warmth in your pocket lingers, and you know it remembers you now. You walk slowly now, not from fear, not even from caution, just reverence. Every step feels like it touches more than just earth, like you're stepping across memory, and the forest notices. Ahead, something flickers in your peripheral vision, a shape, a hollowed tree, split clean through the middle, the way time sometimes carves things open to let meaning breathe. You approach it cautiously, the air colder here, not biting just sharp enough to make the hairs on your arms rise like antennas. The hollow is wide enough for you to step inside, and you do, because of course you do. Because when a whispering forest offers you a doorway shaped like a question, you answer it. The moment you cross the threshold, everything shifts. Sound dulls like a pillow pressed over the world, and then you hear it, a whisper, crisp, singular, and unmistakably shaped like a name, your name. But it's not your voice. It comes from behind you, then above, then all around. The walls of the hollow seem to channel the sound, as if this tree is a gramophone built for ghosts. The whisper comes again. This time, it's longer, like it's trying to form a sentence. You lean against the inner wall, breathing slowly. The bark here is smoother, polished by time and judging by faint grooves, human hands. You run your fingers along one arc, and your skin tingles. The warmth spreads up your arm, settling somewhere behind your collarbone like a half-remembered melody. And then the names start, spoken softly, gently, one after another. Not names you recognize, but each one pronounced with the weight of memory, like a bell rung for someone who mattered. Some are short, some are long, one is barely more than a sigh, but each one lands in your chest with quiet gravity. Turns out, certain forests were once considered sacred memorials, not just cemeteries but witnesses. In Japan, some groves were known as Chinju no Mori, sacred tree clusters believed to house the souls of the departed. Not spirits in trees, spirits as trees. Families would whisper names into the bark during rituals, believing the forest would carry them onward. Historians still argue whether these names were meant to be remembered by people or by the trees themselves. If trees could remember, who were they remembering for? You whisper a name now, not your own, one that drifts up from nowhere, gently demanding to be spoken. You don't know where it comes from, your memory or something deeper. But the moment you say it, the air changes, the whispering stops, silence. Then a deep creak from the hollow itself, as if it's adjusting its posture, and you realize the tree just listened. Not passively, not like a diary, but actively, like a friend. You back away slowly, stepping out of the hollow. The night feels different now, heavier, yet calmer. You look around and notice that the other trees nearby are all angled slightly toward the hollow, like an audience leaning in for a story. And the forest begins to whisper again, but this time, it doesn't feel like random fragments or background murmurs. It feels like names, Hundreds, maybe thousands, overlapping, fading in and out, forming a chorus of memory so subtle it dances between thoughts without disturbing them. You walk on. After a while, you reach a small clearing. At its center is a ring of stones, moss-covered, rounded by time. You sit at the edge and just listen. The whispers form soft spirals in your mind. They no longer try to speak to you in language. They just are, like a song that means something, even if you don't know the lyrics. You close your eyes and you realize it's not that the trees remember names. It's that the forest is the remembering, and now it remembers you too. You rise from the stone circle slowly, as if standing too quickly might startle the quiet. The forest around you breathes. Not metaphorically, you actually feel it. A subtle swell and release of the air, like the woods exhaling just behind your shoulder. You resume walking. No real path, no clear destination, but your feet know, somehow, they guide you gently toward the edge of a ravine, where the trees are thinner and more angular, and the moonlight spills in just enough to paint silver outlines across the forest floor. Then you see them. Tracks. Animal tracks small. Neat paw prints dotting the earth in a perfect arc, leading toward a clump of underbrush. You kneel, inspecting them. Fox, maybe, but something's off. The pattern is reversed. The toes point toward the direction you just came from, but there's no other trail leading up to them. You follow. The prints weave through the trees, doubling back, looping strangely as if the creature walked backward through its own footsteps. At one point, the trail disappears entirely, only to reappear on the other side of a large root. And here's the kicker. There's no indentation in the leaf litter, just prints, placed like stamps. Okay, you're officially in trickster territory now. Folklore is full of backward-walking spirits. In the forests of Scandinavia, they whisper about skogsro, elusive forest women who walked backward to confuse hunters. In some Native American tales, footprints that lead backward mark the path of the spirit world leaking into the living. The idea is always the same. If the forest wants you lost, it will make you follow a story in the wrong direction. Historians still argue whether these myths stem from misread animal trails or actual survival tactics used by people to evade predators or pursuers. Either way, backward paths mean one thing. Something doesn't want to be found, or worse, it wants you to find it. But on its terms, the prints lead you to a thicket of young trees. You pause, then part the branches, and the whispering returns. Not distant now, close, right beside your ear. You whip around. Nothing there. When you look back down, the prints are gone. Of course they are. You step forward into the thicket, ducking under branches that feel just a little too springy, like they're delaying you on purpose. The ground here is softer, the soil darker. You pause, something catches your eye. A patch of bark peeled from a trunk nearby, not randomly, not by weather, clean lines, as if someone cut it. Beneath the bark, the exposed wood is pale, nearly white, and carved into it. A spiral, again, the same shape as the pendant in your pocket. You touch the carving lightly, and this time, there's no tingle, no warmth, just memory. A vision flashes across your mind, like lightning through fog, too quick to fully grasp. But you see trees, people, firelight, dancing shadows, and someone walking backward through a circle of stones. You step back from the tree, heart racing. Something moves behind you. You spin too late, but it's just leaves falling, slowly, in perfect silence. You release a breath you didn't know you were holding. The whispering quiets. And then you notice your own footprints. They're behind you, yes, but they're not yours. Same shoes, same stride, but reversed, as if something is walking your path in reverse. You blink, they vanish. A breeze passes, stirring the underbrush. You feel the trees watching again, but this time, not curiously, not cautiously, knowingly, as if they're trying to see which direction you are walking, forward or not. You keep moving, a little faster now, just enough to feel like you're leading your own story. You step carefully now, one foot, then the other, planting your weight as if the forest might slip out from beneath you. The backward footprints are gone, but the sense of being mirrored that's still here, still walking just a few beats behind your shadow. The trees open up slightly, revealing a hollow, low and wide, carved into the base of a massive oak. You approach it, ducking beneath a bough that seems to lower itself obligingly. The moment you cross the threshold into the hollow, the air changes again, a sound, faint, melodic, like the ring of wind chimes underwater. You step further inside. The sound strengthens. It's not a hum, it's music, but not the kind made by human hands. No strings, no instruments. This music seems woven from tree bark and breeze, like the sound the forest might make when it dreams. You look up. High above in the canopy, a small hole lets moonlight trickle in, spotlighting a jagged cavity in the heart of the tree. The sound is coming from there, a low, resonant tone, modulating ever so slightly, like it's adjusting to you. You sit and you listen. In the 1980s, researchers discovered something odd about trees. They emit low-frequency vibrations called acoustic emissions, often imperceptible to human ears. When stressed, say, by drought or injury, they produce patterns of ultrasonic pops. It's been described as trees screaming, though the reality is more subtle, more like singing slowly, constantly, under their breath. Some botanists speculate these vibrations serve as signals not just for the tree itself, but possibly for its neighbors. A warning, a prayer, a lullaby. Historians still argue whether ancient peoples heard these sounds or simply felt them. In some cultures, musicians played flutes inside hollowed trees to amplify what the forest was already singing. These weren't performances. They were duets. You lean back against the tree wall, and the tone shifts again, rising slightly, as if responding to your breath. You hum, softly, and for a moment, the pitch of the sound matches you. You freeze. Then you hum again, longer this time, and the tone swells gently, harmonizing in real time. You smile, despite yourself, because apparently you're in a jam session with a tree. A breeze passes through the hollow, cool and dry, curling against your cheeks like a sigh of approval. You close your eyes, letting the sound settle in your chest. It vibrates lightly, like a purr. The whispering returns, not words, but resonance, as if the trees aren't telling you something, but tuning you. You reach for the pendant in your pocket. As you wrap your fingers around it, the sound spikes briefly high, clear, like a bell struck once in the distance. Then, silence. You open your eyes. The glow from above has dimmed. The cavity is quiet. The song ended. You step outside the hollow and realize the rest of the forest has joined in. Faint tones, different frequencies now echo from different directions. Some hum low, others high. It's not chaotic. It's coordinated. You're standing in the center of a sleeping symphony. You tilt your head. The whispering has rhythm now, not random, not chaotic, composed. Each breeze, each rustle of leaf, each soft creak of limb, together they form a language you don't quite understand, but deeply recognize. And there, perched in the branches overhead, a line of blackbirds sits silently, watching. Crows, a dozen at least, but not a single one makes a sound. No cause, no flapping, just presence. You look up, they look back, and you get the uneasy feeling that they're listening too, not to the forest, to you. You stand motionless under the gaze of the crows, a dozen small black silhouettes lined along a narrow branch, all facing the same direction toward you. Their feathers gleam slightly in the moonlight, giving them a polished, unreal look, like statues carved from obsidian. Not one of them moves, not one blinks. It should be unsettling. It is unsettling, but it's also reverent. You lower your eyes, unsure of the protocol here. Bow, nod, pretend you're just out for a jog and hope they buy it. Instead, you whisper, "I hear you." The branch shifts. Only one crow responds by turning its head, slowly, deliberately, 90 degrees, as if to say, "We know." Then all at once, they take flight. But not with the noisy flurry you expect. No cawing, no panic, just silence, like a curtain being drawn back in reverse. They vanish into the canopy like ash on wind, and the forest quiets again. Only the whispering remains. You exhale. For a moment, you thought maybe the birds were sentries, but now it feels more like they were escorts, that their job wasn't to scare you, but to witness you. And you begin to wonder how many times they've done this before. Crows, as it turns out, are among the smartest birds on earth. They recognize faces, pass on knowledge across generations, and even perform funerary rituals. Some scientists observed crows gathering silently around dead kin, watching, waiting, mourning, studying, maybe both. Historians still argue whether these behaviors are instincts or evidence of true culture. In Norse mythology, Odin's crows, Hugin and Munin, represented thought and memory. They didn't just watch, they reported back. You press a hand to your chest, where the hum from the tree still lingers. Are you being remembered right now? You glance to the side and notice something you hadn't before. The trees around this part of the forest are closer together, their trunks forming a tight semicircle, almost like an amphitheater. And at its center, a single standing stone. You approach it, every footstep muffled by the deep mat of needles and moss. The stone is waist-high, rounded at the top, and covered in lichen that parts like old parchment under your hand. Beneath, you find faint carvings, spirals again, and interlocking rings. You circle it slowly, and then you hear it. A name, spoken softly from somewhere behind the stone. You whip around, no one there. You step back, heart ticking faster, and hear another name. Then another. You recognize none of them, but they land like heavy snowflakes in your mind, quiet, but thick with meaning. The whispers aren't just voices now. They're roll calls. You kneel beside the stone. The air grows thick. Not heavy, not dangerous, just full, like it's crowded with memory. A breeze passes, and with it comes a scent, faint, sharp, earthy, not unpleasant, like crushed pine mixed with something older. You breathe it in, and the names begin to echo, not through your ears, through your bones. You feel them more than you hear them, and they aren't asking to be remembered. They're remembering you. You stand slowly, not because you're finished, but because you feel finished. The stone has passed judgment or offered blessing, maybe both. As you turn to leave the ring of trees, you notice the birds again, not perched, flying now, in a slow spiral above the canopy. No sound, just motion. You take one step forward. The whispering shifts. No longer behind you. It's in front now, calling you on. You follow. The path in front of you narrows, if it can even be called a path. More like a ribbon of slightly flatter forest floor, winding through brambles that part just enough for you to slip by. Branches arch overhead, closing in like ribs, and for a moment, you feel like you're walking inside a sleeping animal's chest. Careful not to wake it. The whispering grows clearer, more focused. You catch pieces now, not full words, but fragments. Sounds that could be syllables, shapes of meaning, almost familiar, like childhood songs half remembered or names you read once in a book, long out of print. Then, on the bark of a tree ahead, you see it. Letters, carved deeply, carefully. Not the swirling spirals this forest seems to favor, but proper letters, slanted, crisp. You reach out and trace them. They spell your name. Not you, generally, your actual name. You step back. What kind of prank is this? Except it's not recent. The bark has healed slightly over the lines, as if they've been here years, maybe decades. You spin slowly, scanning every nearby trunk. More carvings, dozens, all in different styles, sizes, and languages. But a few repeat, and one of them is yours. Again, you exhale, low and slow. Trees can't know your name unless something told them, unless you've been here before, unless you've always been here. The wind picks up just a short gust, no more than a breath, and the whispering shifts again. You freeze, tuning in. This time, the voices aren't calling out to you. They're speaking to each other. You're not in the forest. You're between conversations. And then you see it, high on the trunk of the nearest tree, carved with absolute precision. A sentence, 5 words, in your language, in your handwriting. You read it aloud, and as you speak the final word, the forest goes silent, the kind of silence that sucks the sound out of your ears. Not peaceful, absolute. Then a single word whispers back. Your voice, perfectly matched. Not a recording, not an echo, a reply. And it didn't come from behind you or above you. It came from inside your chest. You stagger slightly, heart racing. Okay, deep breaths. There's an explanation for this. Right. Here's a lesser-known fact. In 2013, a linguist working with a tribe in Papua New Guinea documented a ritual where trees were used to store ancestral phrases, not metaphorically, literally. The tribe claimed certain trees would return your words if you fed them with breath and time. The phrases came back, years later, whispered not to ears, but to dreams. Historians still argue whether it was just echo chambers in the forest canopy or mass hallucination built on grief. But standing here now, you're starting to wonder, what if some trees really do remember voices? And what if they don't just echo them? What if they borrow them? The whisper returns. Not your name this time. A question, soft, curious, disarming. Why did you leave? Your blood runs still. You say nothing, but the trees wait. Not impatient, not angry, just waiting. You take a cautious step forward and the question fades. The branches above sway slightly, like they're nodding, and then you see more carvings, not just on trees now, but on stones, on fallen logs, even on mushrooms glowing faintly in a circle around an ancient stump. A whole ecosystem of written memory, and threaded through all of it, variations of your name, different spellings, different alphabets, but always you. You kneel by one and brush your fingers across the etched bark. The whispering hushes, like a crowd listening to a confession. You whisper, I don't know. The forest sighs and whispers back. Now you remember, the forest doesn't wait for you to process what just happened. It never does. It simply continues as if your confusion, awe, and borderline existential crisis are all just part of its rhythm. Like leaves falling or roots shifting underground, you are, after all, just one more moving part in its long, slow breath. You walk forward. The carvings fade behind you, but their echo lingers in your chest. There's a weight there now, not heavy like fear, more like gravity, a pull towards something bigger than you, but also you. You reach a slope, steep but manageable. Roots form a natural staircase, and you descend carefully. As you go down, the air thickens, cooler, wetter. The scent of old stone and iron rises like rain on rust, or memories turning in soil. At the bottom of the slope, you find something unexpected. A clearing with no trees, flat, quiet, still, and at its center, a massive tangle of roots, not connected to any visible tree, just the roots exposed, sprawling, weaving over and under one another in intricate patterns, like veins frozen mid-pulse. You crouch beside them. The ground is unusually warm. The roots hum gently, barely perceptible but real. a kind of rhythm. You press your ear to the earth, and suddenly you hear it. Not voices, not whispers. Time, moving, layered, like pages turning in slow succession. You don't hear events, you feel their outlines. The way one root intersects another. The way a thicker trunk emerges from the pattern, only to vanish beneath the moss. This isn't a tangle, it's a map. And not just spatial, temporal. This is what memory looks like when it grows in soil. You trace a thick root to its edge and find a small indentation, a groove, worn smooth, as if something once rested there, or someone. You sit beside it, palms flat on the warm dirt, and you realize this isn't where something was buried. This is where something waits. There's a legend about hourglass roots, trees that grow downward in mirrored shapes, above and below ground, forming a living timepiece. Monks in Northern Europe once believed meditating above such trees could reveal visions not of the future, but of what the future remembers, a subtle difference, but one that changes everything. Historians still argue whether such trees ever existed or whether they were just elaborate metaphors for reincarnation. But you're no longer convinced those things are mutually exclusive. You lie back on the mossy ground, head inches from the root cluster. The forest looms above, ancient and listening. Then, something clicks. A memory, one you don't own. A woman barefoot, cloaked in green, kneeling at this same spot. Her hand on the root, her eyes closed, whispering a lullaby you don't recognize, but instinctively understand. She finishes, stands, and walks away backward. The vision fades. You blink, still lying on the same moss, still beside the root cluster, but the air smells different now. Sharper, like citrus, like the end of a storm. You sit up and notice your pendant. It's glowing softly through your shirt. You take it out, and as you hold it near the roots, the hum beneath the ground increases, not louder, clearer. The roots respond. A single shoot, no wider than a pencil, rises slightly. It touches the pendant, then retracts. The glow fades, but the meaning lingers. Something down there knows you, knows what you carry, knows why you've come. And it's not rejecting you, it's acknowledging. You stand, and the ground is warmer underfoot. The whispering returns, no longer fractured. It doesn't call your name. It includes it. You're not being addressed. You're being added. You climb the slope again, slower this time, not from fatigue, but from something closer to reverence. Like each step is part of a ceremony you didn't know you were invited to, but are now leading behind you. The tangle of roots fades into shadow, but their rhythm echoes in your chest. You can still feel the pull, soft, not forceful. An invitation that doesn't need to be spoken again. It will wait. The forest always waits. The trees up here are older, taller, their trunks wider, their roots more exposed, as if even the ground has stopped trying to hide what lies beneath. You pause beside one particularly massive tree. Its bark is rough, the color of old charcoal, but beneath the outer layer, there's a faint shimmer, a pale iridescence, only visible when the moon hits it just right. You say nothing. You simply raise the pendant again. The shimmer brightens. You lower it, and the glow fades. Right, that's normal. You continue on, and the whispering begins again, but this time, it's different. The cadence has changed. Slower, more deliberate. It doesn't sound like many voices now. It sounds like one. Low, gentle, measured, and it says your name, exactly your name, exactly your voice. You stop. The air grows thick. The trees don't move. The wind has stopped. The forest is holding its breath. You whisper, "Who are you?" Silence. Then your voice again. "I am you." A pause. "And I am not." You exhale shakily. "What do you want?" No response. Only a sound, a footstep. Not yours. You turn around, nothing. But on the ground, where no one stood before, there's a new set of footprints. Just one pair. Bare feet, and they walk away from you, deeper into the trees. Of course you follow. The prints are precise, recent, pressed clearly into soft moss. You step carefully, placing your feet inside the indentations. Like a child following a parent on a beach, the whispering stops. And then something even stranger happens. The forest opens, not visually. You don't suddenly walk into a meadow or anything that's cinematic, but the feeling pressure, presence, sound releases. The trees are still there, still watching, still remembering. But now they step back. You're in a corridor of stillness, and ahead of you is a figure, barely visible, translucent, like mist lit from within. It looks almost human, but not entirely. Its edges blur. Its face is undefined, but it moves like it remembers being flesh. You freeze. The figure lifts one hand, not to wave, to mirror. You raise yours in kind. For a moment, your hand hovers over nothing, and then contact. Not physical, not electric, but undeniable. Your breath catches, and in that single heartbeat, memory floods through you. Not yours, not entirely. The first time someone named the trees aloud. The first time someone burned their name into bark to preserve it forever. The first time someone listened, really listened, to what the forest whispered back. And then it's gone. The figure lowers its hand, turns, and walks into the dark. You don't follow, you don't need to, because now you understand. You weren't lost in the forest. You were being found. You remained still for a long time, rooted like the trees themselves. The silence that follows is unlike any you've experienced before, not the hush of a sleeping world, but the fullness of a story that has just finished telling itself. The pendant at your chest no longer glows, but it's warm, steady, like it's at rest. You breathe in slowly, and the forest breathes with you. There's a rhythm now, shared, intimate. Every step you take from here feels known before you take it, like the forest is walking with you, not behind you. You begin the path back, or at least you think it's back, but the trees have rearranged themselves slightly, not confusingly, more like they're guiding you through a different version of the place you already knew. As if the forest is showing you its memory of your journey. You pass a familiar stump, the one with the glowing amber. It's still there, but the sap has hardened now, fossilized, cold. The whisper that once pulsed from it is gone, replaced by silence. And yet, it doesn't feel empty. It feels complete. Up ahead, you see the tree where you heard your name whispered for the first time. The carving is still there, but moss has begun to grow over it. You don't brush it away. Some names only need to be spoken once. You continue walking. As you go, the whispering returns one final time, gentle, unhurried. But this time, it doesn't come from around you, it comes from you. The rhythm, the cadence, the hush in your own breath. The trees echo it back. You glance behind you. No backward footprints this time. Only yours. Heading forward, the path widens. The trees part. You can see moonlight dancing on the first edge of the forest, the clearing where this began. The trees at the boundary are still now, tall and silent, like sentinels standing down. You step beyond their watchful gaze, and just before you do, you turn around. The forest looks the same, but you know it isn't, and neither are you. You whisper a quiet thank you, and from somewhere deep within the woods, so soft it could be imagined, you hear, "You're welcome." You smile, because now you understand why the trees whisper at night. They're remembering, and now they remember you. So here you are, on the other side of the forest, your footsteps softened by moss and memory. Your name carried gently on the wind behind you. The night feels quieter now, not empty, but peacefully full, like a cup that's been poured slowly and with care. The air is cool, and the sky overhead is wider than you remember. Stars blink lazily above the treetops, not watching, not judging, just being, and you realize, for the first time in a long while, you're not searching anymore. You're simply present, Let your breath settle. Let your shoulders drop. The trees have said their part. The roots have tangled around your name, and the whispers have retreated, satisfied for now. You are safe. You are remembered. You are not lost. Let the rhythm of your heartbeat match the slow, ancient pulse of the forest. Let your thoughts drift like fog across the moss. Let the quiet become your lullaby, the whisper your blanket, the memory your bed. No need to speak. The forest hears you. No need to move. The earth holds you. No need to dream. The trees are already dreaming for you. So rest now. You're home. You always were.